to find another $310 million available that hadn't been used yet.
What's up, guys? Boy Benny. Everybody has their own opinion and everybody brings their own biases to reinforce their worldview, but does the data actually reflect that worldview? Meaning, does the hard data actually prove that you live in reality? And this is why I love hard data. I read the polls, I read the crosstabs, because no matter what bias I have for reality, what does reality actually reflect? And I have my own biases, right? And everybody does. And so that is why a chart like this really kind of cuts to the quick in the argument about Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is an international phenomenon, and many could argue she is the most powerful athlete in the world. And I'll get to that in just a moment. We have some data to back that up. But the reason why she is such a phenomenon is based on data. Here you have the y-axis here, assists per game. This is really important if you're playing basketball. These are the number of points that you create by passing the ball. Over here on the x-axis, we have points per game. How many points do you score? Presumably, you would want a strong XY axis correlation to give you the best players right here. These are the players that are dishing the rock to go get a bunch of points through other players. They're creating points through their gameplay, and they're also scoring points. So right here, you have exceptional players. There are some players over here that are really good at assists, and some players over here that are really good at scoring points just by themselves. And then there's Caitlin Clark right here. You can see out here in literally a league of her own is Caitlin Clark, the golden child, and she's gold for a reason. She scores nearly 30 points per game, and she creates nearly 8 points per game by assists, through assists. And so Caitlin Clark delivers 40 points to your team just by being on your team. This is what the data shows. Having Caitlin Clark on your team gives you 40 points on average in your score column. That's a pretty phenomenal difference maker there. And is literally unseen or unheard of in women's basketball. Based on points and assists per game, the Iowa Star has no peers this season. So it is exactly that phenomenon that has led to a fever, I guess, so to speak, over watching Caitlin Clark play for the Indiana Fever, which is the team that she plays for in the WNBA. WNBA teams see increase in ticket sales after Caitlin Clark announced plans to enter draft. WNBA ticket sales soar as interest grows in Caitlin Clark. Now, the WNBA is a league that has lost money in 20 years of existence. It has always been a subsidized welfare baby for the NBA. They often, WNBA teams, play to empty stadiums and empty fans. Nobody ever makes a single dollar, and nobody has any interest at all. If you walk through the streets of a major city that has a WNBA team and ask people what the name of that team is, nobody will be able to answer. And so Caitlin Clark has changed everything for this sport. And that's why you could argue she's potentially the most powerful athlete in the world, because no single athlete has this kind of an outsized effect on the entire league, right? Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, LeBron James. You can't argue that these people in arenas that would be empty, that suddenly they're sold out. And that's what Caitlin Clark has done. Caitlin Clark, when she plays a game, increases the ticket sales by tenfold in the WNBA. There is not another single player, you could argue, in the world that has that kind of a delta to make up, right? Maybe a lot of people want to go see phenomenal players, and there are plenty of other phenomenal players in lots of sports. Caitlin Clark makes that delta up in a way, she bridges the gap in a way that no other athlete really does for their profession. And so what does she get for this? What is her thanks from the league that suddenly has all of these fans and suddenly has all these eyeballs on them, and eyeballs are money in this profession? What is the thanks that Caitlin Clark gets? Well, she gets assaulted, which is what this is. If this were to happen at Burger King or at Blockbuster Video, if this were to happen outside of a 7-Eleven or at a local branch of your bank, then this would be seen as assault and the police would be called. Same thing here. Look at this. Look at the shot that Caitlin Clark takes to the skull here in this clip.
Caitlin Clark, look at this. Not a play on the ball by Angel Reese. Hey, Shaq, you know, I'd lay off her. She's just so goddamn dirty. Like, not going for the ball at all. What is this? Just an absolute cheap shot. Angel Reese, Chicago Sky, dirtiest players in the game, and it's over and over and over and over.
So, I don't consider myself an athlete. I certainly don't consider myself a top-tier athlete like Caitlin Clark. I mean, I never, of course, would do that. There's no data to support that. But I'm not, I don't think, out of shape. But I got to tell you, if this happened to me, if I was mid-air, and this is going to be kind of embarrassing to admit, but it is what it is. If I was in mid-air and somebody hit me with an elbow aside my face and slammed their elbow to the point that my neck had to, was effectively shot 45 degrees in the other direction, and then I had to land in that condition, then I'd probably be in a wheelchair. And this is simply a testament to the true athlete that Caitlin Clark
by the way,
is.
Caitlin Clark's cooking them. The dirtiest team in the league. The Sky. There's that punk, and then a swing. It's all her. What's illegal?
Look at this.
This is the girl who cheap shot her last time. You got a hook and a hold there on her, and then you swing the arm. What do you want? This is this Chicago Sky team. Like, what are you doing? Someone punch her in the face. Break her nose.
So the internet is, of course, outraged at this behavior, and we'll get to exactly why the league is behaving like this. Caitlin Clark just got assaulted again. This is becoming a weekly occurrence. She goes in for a layup, and she gets viciously elbowed in the head. Why is this happening? Nothing is more unattractive than victimhood mentality, says Patrick Beck-David. Even after it happened, Angel Reese, sort of the nemesis of Caitlin Clark, says that she got a special whistle because of it. Father's Day, pray that your daughters grow up to be like Caitlin Clark and not jealous, racist thug Angel Reese. And I think that's ultimately the point. And Clay Travis sums it up nicely here. What an answer. WNBA players as a whole want Caitlin Clark out of the league. They'd rather have a league that nobody watches than a popular white player. Truly insane. And that is really what's at play here. If you're looking at the actual driving forces behind what's happening to Caitlin Clark in this league, it is the fact that she is a straight, white, Christian, Midwestern girl who was taught basketball by her father, and through simply hard work and not identity politics, she was able to become the GOAT. She was able to become, based on the data, the best player to ever play. Period. The best player to ever play women's basketball. And that's what's charted here. I'd like to actually compare this chart to men's basketball, because these are really impressive numbers for men's basketball. And that's truly that's actually what's going on. The WNBA wants to kill Caitlin Clark. They would rather Caitlin Clark be in a wheelchair and be unable to play forever than to be somebody who is of an identity that they despise, the oppressor identity, doing better than them. And of course, I just say that because that is the leftist framing. Look at this foul. Look at what they do to her. Look at this. These are assaults. The police need to get involved before Caitlin Clark gets killed. This is like the Detroit Pistons in the 1980s didn't play like this. This is filthy. So what is happening to Caitlin Clark is that she has become a target for identity politics orcs who are talentless, who are troglodytical, and who, instead of doing what Caitlin Clark did, which was work really, really hard to be the best that you can at your profession and your sport, and to overcome that any adversity through hard work, because they don't have the capacity to work the way that Caitlin Clark has worked. They don't have the determination, the drive. They'll do what the mob always does. They'll try and destroy her. They'll try. Why do mobs attack churches and beautiful things with spray paint and with Molotov cocktails? Why do the mobs always try and tear down and deface beautiful monuments or paintings or things that have cultural significance and beauty? Because they cannot stand that those things exist. Because by existing, those things are a reflection of their mediocrity and the embarrassment, quite frankly, of their failings. They're a living testament to their failings. And so this is why they assault Caitlin Clark. These women who should be worshiping Caitlin Clark, Caitlin Clark is going to make them so much richer and so much more powerful based on the fact that people are there to watch her and to see her and support her. And that means that ticket sales go through the roof and the stadium makes more money and you make more money on concessions. This, ladies and gentlemen, is suicidal. But we've seen this before. This is identity politics. Identity politics is about lighting it all on fire. It's like it is based in greed. It is based in the assumption that there is somebody who is an oppressor that deserves to be knocked down, who didn't get to where they are because of hard work or because they deserve it. And this is what you're seeing with Caitlin Clark. It is actually, quite literally, the culture war playing itself out in real time in the WNBA. And Caitlin Clark doesn't deserve this. Caitlin Clark should have just stayed at Iowa, should have cleared $15 million, which is what she could have totally commanded through an NIL like donation program, right, for athletes, which you're allowed to effectively, donors are allowed to pay athletes now. She could have made millions of dollars, stayed at Iowa, been in a league that isn't completely and totally run by angry, bitter, envious, mongoloid orcs who just wish to tear everything down. That's better than them. And unfortunately, Caitlin Clark, I think, made the wrong decision and decided to join the NBA. And now she's getting assaulted every single game. She's also not on the Olympics team. She was not allowed to be on the Olympics team. This is what Dave Portnoy has to say about that.
These women, and I love women. I'm a pro-woman guy, women guy. They complain and they cry about equal rights, equal wages, blah, 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 blah. Hey, dummies. For the first time, like in the history of basketball, you have arguably a player who is the most popular player in the world. Like, you could argue right now, Caitlin Clark is the most talked about, discussed, most popular, most puts asses in the seats, single basketball player in the world. You could argue that. Yeah, you can say maybe LeBron, Luka, whatever you want, but you can argue it. And you leave her off the Olympics team, it's not only a showcase for her, it's for the sport and the other WNBA players who are on this team. How dumb, how brain dead, how idiotic do the people running this thing have to be? It was one thing after another with her. How I at the business part of my brain is like, these people, and maybe it's a guy who did, whoever it is, I don't ever want to hear you complain about flying commercial or not getting salaries or this, that. You're too dumb. You're too dumb. You have a cash cow. This can bring the Olympic basketball, women's basketball will be like the number one thing people watch with Caitlin Clark. As it is, I'd rather watch grass grow. I'd rather watch paint dry. I'd rather watch dirt just be moved around. Because Caitlin Clark's not on the team.
I'll leave you with this. When was the last time you heard Stephen A. Smith argue on behalf of white identity politics? When was the last time you heard Stephen A. Smith argue that diversity actually means sometimes including people who don't typically succeed, perhaps in the sport of basketball? A shock for you, and I'm sure it was certainly a shock for me, and I'm sure this will be a shock for you. Caitlin Clark.
But there's a broader issue here that can't be escaped, and that is this. She is a white young lady, and she's been a magnet in a way that has benefited the league in ways that others have not, even though their efforts have been worthy and deserving of being as celebrated, if not even more celebrated. And it's a reminder that no matter how far we believe that we have advanced as a society, there's still such a long way to go, because in the end, if you're white, you're bright, you're right, and as a result, the shine comes your way in the eyes of a lot of people in America. Let's transition. Very uncomfortable to touch on, but just factually correct. You have somebody that's a presidential candidate. What is his claim to fame? Make America great again. What have people interpreted that to mean? Make America white again. These are the things that critics have said. He has his supporters spanning the tens of millions. There are others on the other side having tens of millions of the supporters on their side. What has that led to? A divide. It is not a divide that is created. It is a divide that's illuminated because it's highlighting and showing that it's been in existence all along. It hasn't gone anywhere. As we travel for the NBA Finals, and Shanae is here with yours truly and Kendrick Perkins and Brian Windhorst and stuff like that. Yeah, in the city of Dallas, we're chilling, this metropolis, and, we're having a good time. Go to some of the outskirts of Texas. Go to some of the outskirts of Florida. Go to some of the outskirts of various places throughout this country, and you see places that ain't trying to hear all of that. It was the way that it was, and we ain't trying to change it for anybody. We holding on to this, whatever that it may be. And as a result of that, we find ourselves on too many occasions witnessing the conflict that we thought had subsided, that we thought had evaporated before our very eyes. And what we've learned is it has not. It has not. So when Carrington spoke up, I got where she was coming from. I certainly don't hold Caitlin Clark accountable for that. But what Caitlin Clark has to understand is that it's not really you personally. It's you, the figure. It's you, the prop per se, that is being utilized to address a bigger point. If we could do it, everybody has done it.